to our captivating webinar about leadership and coaching. I'd like to first introduce our speakers, William and Shirley, Dr. Shirley. So I'm sure you all know William. He's the founder of LIT Training. I've known him for many years. And he has helped a lot of people with training. He's trained the future leaders of the industry today. He has a wealth of knowledge in leadership and agile, safe methodologies, and he will be presenting today as well. Shirley, Dr. Shirley is a doctorate in coaching and leadership. So she has been consulting since 2009. She's a very knowledgeable person when it comes to leadership, coaching, and empowering teams to be better. So I am looking forward to an interesting conversation today. We've got a lot to get through. Yes, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Shirley, who's actually prepared a few slides to talk us through agile leadership and the key principles and the benefits. So I'm really looking forward to learning a few tips and tricks from you, Shirley. Are you ready with your slides?
Right, so I've got 10 minutes to get everyone to reflect on leadership and what it means to them as individuals and also for their organisation or project. So these are some of my ideas, but just think about the title of this session, Unlocking Leadership Potential. As Angela says, we're all capable of being leaders. After all, we're all trusted to be parents. Anyone's trusted to be a parent, so there is leader potential within us. So I'm thinking leadership is a human quality, or some human dimension at least, and we all possess it. And then you think empowering transformation, that sounds huge. So the responsibility that comes with leadership my first word here is difficult. You know, there's accountability for results that comes into this. There's responsibility thrust on our shoulders as leaders. And there's some philosophical dimension as well. You know, the organisation wants things done a certain way. There's national governance that's required. I think philosophy is really important. I've just had a chapter published in a book on responsible project management where I talked about leadership development and tried to argue that leaders aren't taught enough about philosophy, but it's hard. It's a complex subject, even though we meet it every day. You know, politics is around us, people have multiple perspectives. As leaders, we have to stand above all these perspectives and somehow balance them and use a lot of wisdom. My second word is it's complex. You know, I have a book here called Leadership is an Art. I hope you can see that. If I put it right in front of my face, you might be able to see it, maybe. But it's by Max Dupre. It was written nearly 20 years ago now. Leadership is an art. Now that means it's not a science. You can't go on training and say, right, if you do this and this, then this is likely to happen. It's not a 2 + 2 = 4 type of theory. So what happens is a bit like a painter. You know, he picks up his paintbrush and he's going to draw a picture. By the time he's finished that picture, lots of thoughts might have come to him. It might be completely different as to what he intended in the beginning. It might be similar, but lots of things will have happened, I'm sure, to change it in subtle ways. And I think leadership is like that as well. It's emergent. And what happens is leadership just happens. It's the result of what we all do. But that aside, the difficulty and the complexity of it all, that aside, I really want to home in on this developmental measure. I think that's what we're all used to. That's why we send leaders on training. There is some sort of developmental journey that we all think that we're following. So we're developing our mind, you know, our awareness and our spirit in a way. You know, we all have to want to be leaders and take on more. And my last bullet is, well, is leadership about, is it an individual thing? Yes. Is it interpersonal? Yes. We have leadership comes out of teams. And is it social? Yes. Communities, all around us, you can see leadership happening in our social communities, whether it's the church or your town or village, tennis club. It's all happening everywhere, as it does in organizations. So I want to lift us out of that back into a more of an academic perspective, because I've been reading recently how leadership is not really well understood. The theories are not very good about it. And I really like John Schotter's view, is that we have to think about leadership as practice. As I said, leadership happens as a result of what we all do. And his perspective is we have to turn leadership inside out and back to front and change the way we think about it completely. So he's very much about how we collaborate together, just remove power. You really want to get into conversation where one side isn't influencing the other. You need to come together in an open stance and listen to one another. So this notion of no judgment, no power, no influence is called dialogic relationship and conversation. And that's what he's implying that we all need to get to really understand leadership better. Now, I said before that leadership is about philosophy, and philosophy is difficult. So you'll find people talk about all these different styles. I don't know what style you use. I was certainly brought up on situational, Hershey and Blanchard, whether you've seen that one. It's very old now, probably in the 1980s. And I think very old-fashioned in its terminology, because coach is in one of the quadrants, and I would say in very much the wrong quadrant. And in fact, coaching could be used in all of them. So these styles are evolving, much like the understanding of leadership is evolving. So, you know, some of you will say, oh, transformational is what you want. And some of you will say servant is what leadership is what you want. But you probably don't want one of all of them. One of them. You want all of them. So they all apply in certain situations. And so the more we understand about this, the more wise we get about handling a particular situation. Yes, so I wanted to talk about agile coaching a little, because before I hand over to William, because I think the books that I've read, I've given 2 examples here, they very much present coaching as leadership, I think. And they talk about lots of different roles, not just coach. So here's some: teacher, facilitator, coach, mentor, conflict negotiator, collaboration conductor, problem solver. Leaders can do all those things. And Alyssa Adkins even suggests you finding another role, because there's probably something else you do that she hasn't named. So I think that's really interesting. Even before COVID, I was a member of, or I attended the Agile Coaching Exchange meetings. I really think they're valuable. They've very much moved their understanding of coaching into the more non-directive space, which I think is where leadership is taking us. And I particularly like the new idea that's coming out, that new philosophical, again, idea that leaders who coach is a strong philosophical underpinning for any research that's going on. So if we're saying there's not a lot of theory, and I've got a quote somewhere which I think is in an article I'm able to give you later, it says that most of the theories that have come about for leadership don't work. And that's because everything today is so much more complex and entwined, that, you know, the theories that people thought worked, they didn't really understand the environment that we're now in. So leaders who coach have to understand, we have to be an understanding of what coaching is. And in the agile world, it hasn't really been very well understood. And I think William's going to talk about this a little bit more. But just for the moment, I just wanted to leave you the idea that if you're an agile coach or a scrum master or something like that, then you are a leader and you need to have leadership skills. And so understanding non-directive coaching particularly, I think, is really important.
That's fantastically okay. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you so much, Dr. Shirley. Building on what Dr. Shirley Thompson shared, I'd like to touch on coaching in an agile environment and taking into consideration business agility and how leaders can empower teams for success. But we also would take a look at empowering leaders for success. And I'll touch on some key points and I would expand on them during the Q&A. So the areas I'll be touching on is business agility, leadership competence, agile coach roles, benefits of coaching, and the grow model. So when we look at business agility, we know we are in a digital age and we need to respond quickly to market changes, emerging opportunities, and innovatively digitally enabled solutions. For example, we've seen the rise of AI, big data, cloud, DevOps, which will enable enterprises to expand their product lines, maximize and modernize their existing offerings to scale. But for this to go ahead, it starts with the leaders, and they need to exemplify behaviors that would inspire and motivate the organization to pursue a better way of working. And how do these leaders do it? They set examples by coaching, empowering, and engaging individuals and teams, more importantly, to deliver customer and business value, because that's what will keep us in business for the long term. And to be sure that the enterprise is creating the right solutions for the right customers at the right time, they must balance execution focus with customer focus. And it requires a lot of that coaching, empowering, and engaging individual teams. So the area of empowering, we will say we shall allow the teams to have autonomy, make decisions. But when it comes to autonomy and decisions, we know we need to give the teams some guardrails. And the leaders have to coach the teams into this. So how can leaders achieve this? SAFE presents a leadership competency that helps leaders go on that journey to support the team. And it requires that leaders lead with a right mindset, which is the growth mindset. Leaders lead by example, and leaders would have to lead the change. Today, I'll touch on the growth mindset. The growth mindset says intelligence can be developed. But for us to do this, we need to embrace challenges. We need to train our mind and know that we can expand and learn more. Effort is path to mastery. We learn from feedback, and we are inspired by the success of others. Whilst I know the fixed mindsets believe that their talent and traits are fixed, unchangeable, and they struggle to go through changes. They avoid risk, challenges that might expose their weakness, and thinking that effort is not smart enough. People with a fixed mindset will cover their flaws, they are defensive, and they'll view feedback as personal attack. But the onus lies on our leaders to drive a new culture and a new way of working. But what I've seen in a lot of organizational transformation is there's a lot of time spent on leaders communicating the change, engaging with various teams to lead the change. So in transformations, what we do see is leaders taking a lot of time to grow the teams and make sure that the teams get the support they need. An area or a level within the business that we don't get much support or much support needs to be put to will be the area of managers to help empower teams to continuously deliver. When we have an organization which has built-in coaching, what we tend to see is 80% of the people who receive coaching will report increased self-confidence, and over 70% will benefit from better workforce performance. A model which I would recommend that we start looking at will be the GROW model to help us start on that coaching journey. But to lead the change, we'll look at some of the keys to leading successful change. We can say, oh, let's build coaching into the organization. Let's talk about coaching. Let's help the organization transform. Let's deliver business value. But for that to happen, first, we need to create a sense of urgency. We must communicate the need for change, or else people will find it as another change and nothing would really happen. So we must help others see the need for change through a bold aspirational statement that will drive the change. We must build a guiding coalition, a team of people that will be a volunteer army strong enough. In SAFE, we call them the LACE team, and they run around supporting the organization on this journey. It's supported by leaders creating a strategic vision, enlisting and empowering the army to do the work they have to do to support the change that we want to see. Last, in the other part, what we would like to do is we would like to see all barriers being removed, because when you empower the LACE, empower the team, and you still put blocks and barriers, the teams do not get the outcome and the output that they need to implement. So we need to remove barriers, we need to remove blocks, and every time there is an issue, leaders must act fast. But in a SAFE environment, we see leaders acting fast by attending the PI planning, attending various other team meetings to help unblock any form of barriers in the way of the team. And for us to see it and rapidly cascade it across the organization, we must generate short-term win, sustain the acceleration, and institute the change. The change must continuously be rapid so that we can build that mindset within the organization, so that we can see a sustainable change instituted in the organization. And we also do this to replace old habits. As we all know, old habits die hard. And if we don't keep the discipline, we might revert back to what we are intending to do. So which team can help us do that? In the SAFE framework, we implement the LACE team, the Lean Agile Center of Excellence. They facilitate the transformation, they manage the transformation backlog, they foster the Lean Agile mindset, and then they coach and support leadership throughout the whole process. What are the key roles of a coach? I know Shelley touched on this, so I'll be I'll just touch on a few points and then we'll move on. The coach is first a consultant, and they must understand the framework being used to support the organization going ahead with this particular transformation. You are a coach, and you also need to balance your knowledge of the framework and your coaching skills to develop the team on that journey. Hence, you must handhold. Shelley will say that's the mentor's role. So you do both the coaching and the mentoring to guide the teams. You're also a counselor. You develop structure and also help resolve dysfunctions. You listen to the team, help manage various conflicts that are happening. And Shelley initially mentioned it, the coach as a conflict negotiator. You're a change agent, you're a facilitator, and then you're a teacher and a trainer. I think all this would make you an elite coach or a coach that can support the organization. But it's not a one-time journey. It takes time to get there. And when you are on the journey, you want to set up a roadmap for yourself as the coach, so that you develop yourself and then you can develop the organization. And the first quote, which I really liked, was by John Wooden. He said, "A good coach can change the game, but a great coach can change life." Secondly, by the founder of CNN, it says, "Coaching is the universal language of change and learning." And I think these two quotes sum up the strong need for bringing coaching into business environments and into organizations undergoing transformation. I would like to leave a model that I always recommend as the starting point for folks to understand coaching. But I think even though the grow model is one that most of us have seen, it shouldn't be the key starting point. Coaching should be embedded in the organization's strategy and then cascaded from leadership with the support of the agile coaches or the leads to drive coaching throughout the organization. And simply, everyone within the organization can use this model to start off. But one thing that I've also learned from Dr. Shelley Thompson is before you start any coaching exercise, you need to have an agreement with the person you intend to coach so that it becomes a conversation that the other party has agreed to partake. And it does not become a one-sided conversation where you've got a set of questions and you expect the other person. So there needs to be that agreement before we start any coaching exercise. And you don't go straight ahead and say, what do you want? That is a non-starter. And we also have to look at when you start off with a goal, the second is the reality, what's the current situation? Third is the options, what could you do? And finally, what would you do to make this great change? If we embed coaching within the organization, we do see a lot of benefits. Some of the benefits are we have an engaged leadership team, capable managers to support the transformation. People think and feel like the customer in operations and in development. We have capable teams that are in a learning organization, and through coaching and support across the organization, we create customer lifetime value for delivering solutions. Reflect on the benefits, and we will go into the questions area. And thank you so much for all the time offered. Angela, I'm on time.
Thank you. That was really good. Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions to both William and Dr. Shelley. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask, please do feel free to add them into the chat here. So I think that was really insightful slides from both Dr. Shelley and William. The areas I wanted to delve a bit more into detail and get to know perhaps your thoughts when it comes to leadership and coaching. Perhaps I'll start with you, William. We all know from your slides, etc., that there is a huge amount of information that as a new person joining a company and we want to really improve our leadership skills, we want to unleash that. So what is when it comes to coaching and leadership, what are the key aspects that can help us unlock and show those skills within an organization, show leadership skills within teams?
So coaching in itself unlocks the leadership potentials of the individual. And the first thing it helps create is the self-awareness. When you go through a coaching exercise, you gain a deeper understanding of whom you are, your strengths, your weakness, your values, and your leadership style. And that would help you to build the right goals so that you can support yourself and the leadership teams to aspire to achieving the objectives that have been set for the transformation. When you go through coaching as well, an important thing that you develop is your skill. You know what your current state are and what your development skills are. And it helps you personalize and guide yourself towards achieving essential skills to support with the transformation. And it also enables you to develop essential leadership skills. And it becomes a journey for you to develop those skills and support the transformation. You develop empathy and resilience, understanding whom you are, and you're able to navigate challenges and build positive relationships across the organization. One thing that I've seen coaching help me personally with is that continuous growth mindset and that commitment to continuous learning so that I can build my personal leadership skills, adapt, innovate, and inspire people on the journey. So I think these are the key things: self-awareness, goal setting, skill development, empathy and resilience, and that mindset of continuous growth. Thank you, Angela.
No worries. Thank you very much. Shirley, would you like to add to that point about self-awareness, and from your perspective, obviously it's a key ingredient in coaching, as William mentioned, but is there anything else that can help us unlock, our leadership potential and coaching by using self-awareness and improving and homing in on that skill?
Well, I'll try. I think there's a embedded conflict between the ideas that people have about leader and being self-aware. So, on the one hand, some people expect leaders never to make a mistake and always be right. And on the other hand, if you build your self-awareness, you realize that learning is a never-ending journey and you can't be 100% right all the time. So I think one of the nice things is that if you start the coaching journey, you're sort of forced to improve yourself. If you're trying to help others, you will naturally want to improve yourself. You become aware. Mm-hmm. And then there's something in the fundamental non-directive coaching style where the coach must remove themselves from the conversation, in a sense. They really need to be the supporter for the other person to think through their own thoughts and their own feelings. Well, you have to start to learn to manage your own emotions if you're going to just be a supporter for someone else. Quite often when someone else speaks, your own emotions creep out and your own judgments come through. So learning to control those and hold them back to let somebody else work through their own process, I think, is invaluable learning. And of course, you're very privy to how someone else thinks and how their mind works. And that opens up your mind to, oh, wow, there are more ways of thinking about things than I have thought of. So the complexity of the human mind, I think, opens up to us and we become more willing to learn and more open to different perspectives. But I think it's the learning that we can't be perfect that is, mm-hmm. but we all have to make the best of what we've got. So
yes.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. And we can get into the details a bit later on that because I have some follow-up questions on that. So I just wanted to ask, William, you mentioned, there are a couple of buzzwords in the industry right now, AI, blockchain, and transformational change. What are the tips when it comes to transformational change? A lot of companies are going through, whether that's launching new products or they're having mergers and acquisitions. What other kind of tips you would give someone that's starting their career and joining a company that's going through a large organizational change, and how could they perhaps show that they can, deliver, as well as dealing with, various stakeholders, and using coaching and leadership skills to to help them in these situations, which I'm sure you can imagine will be quite challenging at times.
Yeah. To build on what Shirley talked about around that continuous learning mindset, as an individual, when you join an organization going through a transformation, a merger, or going through a change, first, you need to build a mindset of active listening. And the thing with coaching is coaches listen emphatically to be leaders. And they look at what's happening within their environment so that they can build a perspective on the change that is happening within the organization. So as a leader, you should, I talked about self-awareness. It's all about listening to the inner self and listening to the environment around you. Whilst you're listening to the inner self and the environment around you, you ask yourself questions. Coaching in itself is about asking powerful questions, and you can self-reflect by asking yourself powerful questions. And luckily, if you have a coach, that coach can also ask thought-provoking questions to prompt your reflection and motivate you for the need for change. When you join such an environment, I always believe in the concept of roadmaps And you can set your goals and action plans by having a roadmap of what are the key set of actions I want to support this particular transformation with, in addition to your key objectives and key results that you have being part of that particular transformation. So if you set that clear actions and plans for yourself, you are able to embed your actions and plans into the key objectives and results to support with the transformation. Finally, resilience is quite a powerful technique that's needed. But how do you build resilience? Is it through experience? There's so many uncertainties and setbacks that will happen in major changes. And you being able to be strong and resilient to support the teams and yourself would enable you lead that particular change. All this, I think, are techniques that would enable you join a transformation, empower the teams, either being a leader or a follower, or supporting and making that necessary change within that particular transformation.
Excellently answered. Thank you. We have a few questions in the chat, and Shirley, I think sounds like emotional intelligence is another area that, you know, it's very important that we home in on those skills when it comes to coaching, and it's very key to enhancing our leadership skills as well. How do you think someone can help, how can coaching support leaders in cultivating that skill? Any other tips that you can add in terms of emotional intelligence?
I think practicing as a coach and being coached is a great way of practicing. It's a bit like learning to give good presentations or, you know, good interview. You have to do it to feel it, and you know, emotions are felt. So you have to be in it to feel it, to know what it feels like and know how to manage it. So yeah, if you go and read Daniel Goleman, you know, it's all about sort of leadership and empathy, and I think he's got 4 quadrants as well. So you can learn the theory of it, but until you're actually in it, I think it's challenging. Most of us haven't had any training on emotions. Most of us cannot distinguish one emotion from another, or we have a very broad brush on emotion. You know, oh, I don't feel so good today, or I feel a bit down. They can't be very specific in their language about what they're actually feeling. So I think it's an interesting notion that we've all latched onto this emotional intelligence, and now we're all worried we haven't got it, or it's low, or whatever. I honestly think my emotional intelligence is not very good on a one-to-one basis, but I don't have a problem being a coach at all, because most of the time I'm managing myself, and I think I've always been good at that, and had to be resilient in my all-male dominated IT environment in IBM all those years ago. So I feel that I've got strength, but understanding, my empathy is probably not quite as good, but in a team my empathy is very good, because I've had lots of experience of that. You know, I can feel the temperature in the room, or the feelings in the room quite well, quite quickly. Less good on individuals. So I think it is about noticing and finding out what there is to notice. So as William said, you know, coaches get into this developmental journey, they're into journaling, they're into looking at themselves, they're asking for feedback, they're always in peer coaching sessions or supervision, they're always trying to improve their skills. So, you know, you have to start somewhere, and I'm not expecting all leaders to be excellent coaches, but I do think they need to understand what coaching is and what it means to be non-directive, to give someone else space to just be who they are, and support them in their thinking. Because most of us haven't had a lot of good coaching. Most of us have had sports coaching or managerial, telling type coaching. And it took me ages to learn how to use coaching successfully, where the coach wasn't going to tell me what to do. It's taken me a long while myself, and I've learned through being a coach. So I definitely think that leaders can learn. I definitely got into all of the coaching because I could see that project managers needed to coach. That's been my mission since 2005, I think, to help project managers with their soft skills. So yeah, all I can do is encourage people to get started. And I do help people that way. And I've been involved in PMI UK mentoring for quite a while. We've encouraged people to go on one-day coach training courses and just to get them started, because most of it is in the head. It's all philosophy. This intention to actually sit back and let someone else do all the work, take all the responsibility for deciding the goal and how they're going to get there, what actions they're going to take, takes some doing. I think so. It's very, it's not our traditional way of working. So people need to kind of get into that mode of practicing. Once they've got it, it's like a switch, and they get it straight away. My doctorate showed that people get it after very minimal coaching practice. They get the idea, and then it's just about going to practice it and then working out where in their organizational conversations, their work conversations, they can actually do it. And as William's alerted everyone to, I'm very much into agreement and having responsible conversations where both parties come together with a shared intention. It's very hard to coach unless you do that, because one person is pulling against the other all the time, and that's not going to work. So yeah, very, very interested in that, and that will step us into this dialogic space where we stop judging. And if we stop judging, it's more likely that we'll open up ourselves to opportunities and be more creative and innovative, which is what everyone wants after all.
Exactly. Yes.
Sorry, that probably went on a bit too long.
No, that's awesome. You've actually answered a few of the questions that have been put into the group. So that's the kind of environment we want to have in the office, right? We want people to feel, empowered to speak. We want people to not feel judged for sharing their thoughts. So I think that's answered a few questions. So William, let's address some of the misconceptions around this area. I know you train a lot of people and they have perhaps different understandings of this when it comes to agile leadership and coaching. Could you share some of the common misconceptions you've seen or you've heard?
I think
and maybe set the record straight. Yeah.
One that you often hear is coaching is micromanagement. Some individuals may perceive coaching as a form of constant oversight, but within agile coaching, the focus is empowering individuals and teams and providing guidance when needed so that the teams can stay on the path to delivering the business outcome. And coaching is giving all the solutions. Of course, as a knowledge and a framework coach, you should be able to support the organization or seek and find the solutions or options that will help the organization go on the journey. From a coaching viewpoint, coaching is not about providing all the ready-made solutions, but if you're an agile coach, you are brought in for the knowledge of the framework and support you can provide for the organization. So you would also spend time understanding the concepts so that you can ask the right questions and provide answers to the organization on their development journey. Another thing we tend to find is when an agile coach is brought in, the mindset is agile is all about speed. Yes, we agree to that. But while the organization aims to deliver value faster, there's certain factors that would need to be taken into consideration. What is quality and customer satisfaction? And sometimes when you have an MVP to go out, there could be the need for regulatory checks that could reduce it. But to deal with regulatory checks, can we bring regulators up front or let's start engaging with the regulators upfront to reduce it. In this area, I believe it's far and far better than employing the waterfall approach to delivery, because we do see MVPs or minimum viable features that will go out and then we can get feedback. Instead of it all being about speed, it should be about the feedback. And there's a quote I really enjoy: feedback is the breakfast of champions. And the more feedback we get, it will help us improve the backlog, it will help the teams improve, and it will help align the teams towards delivery. And I think the last one will be Agile does not include so much planning, but there's a lot of planning. Before the sprint planning, there are other activities that are planning to support, that are in the form of planning to support the team. But we know that we're working just in time and it will help us deliver what's expected. Finally, during an agile environment, we're mindful of coaches who say, we can adapt and make changes as quickly as possible. Of course, we need to adapt and make the necessary changes. But before we make the various changes, it needs to be feasible. It needs to be technically, we need the technical capability, and we need the financial strength to be able to deliver. These are some of the misconceptions, but coaching helps. Bringing in the right coach, as I said earlier, a great coach would help change the game. So bringing the right coach would help change the game and align the organization on their delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. And Shirley, I don't know if you would like to add to that, especially around the points on the misconceptions in terms of coaching as well that you've seen.
Well, the biggest misconception is that we could call it agile coaching when we mean agile leading, or even agile project management. So, as a
the terminologies.
Yes, as a professional project manager, I have to sit here and smile. I left IBM in 2005 as a project manager on an iterative project. So very early agile days. So I just find it interesting. That agile coach terminology is a leader who has to do lots of things. Some of the time they're coaching. And so my recommendation is just to analyze all the conversations that you have as a leader, whatever title you've got, analyze them all and understand your intentions for that conversation and see how much your intentions are shared with the other people's intentions in that conversation. And then you can work out whether you're leading, you're training, you're facilitating, coaching, or whatever you're doing. Until you do that, you haven't really started to analyze your role. So that's what I would recommend. I'm happy to help people with, engaging in responsible conversation, as I say, to kind of air your intentions at the beginning and just to find out what's going on. I'd love to hear about some of the conversations you think coaching would help in, but you're not actually coaching at the moment. Or you think you're coaching, but actually you might not be. I would love to help with those.
Yes, and I highly recommend that everybody connects with Shirley to learn more about it, because she's also opened up my eyes in a lot of areas when it comes to coaching and has a breadth of knowledge. So before we conclude, I'm just keeping an eye on time. There's some questions which haven't been answered. For example, how can leaders measure the effectiveness of coaching initiatives and demonstrate the return on investment to stakeholders? William, do you want to try and tackle that question?
The question again, Angela?
So when it comes to return on investment and, trying to, I guess, let the leaders know that, this is an area that perhaps the team need to invest in terms of training and improving their skills, how can you build a case that will say, this is actually going to improve the company, and how can they measure that improvement? Is there any ways that they can measure that to build a case for ROI?
There's a strong case for that when you want to build a coaching organization and bring learning as a way of working within the organization. We are in an era where things are changing, and if the organization sticks to its ways of working without embedding learning into the whole process, they'll remain stagnant and they will lose quite a lot of their staff, who will be moving on to organizations that are encouraging strong learning and being at the cutting edge of delivery. The more you build learning into the organization, you see a lot of excellence and distinction among your staff. So when we kick off transformations, it's best to get people through the learning process, and it can be bringing in Udemy, bringing a training organization, and bringing in the necessary consultants to help with that particular journey. If you want to measure it, there's a good way of always measuring all these outcomes when you've trained and developed your people. You can start it by a survey of how people have gone through the various trainings and their feedback from the various trainings. And it should also start with leadership inputting into the survey and giving their results so that it can be analyzed for the necessary results. You can also run interviews across the organization by handpicking people who've done various trainings and then seeking their feedback, which will be very informative for any research to help you understand the benefits realized, providing the necessary guidance and support for the team members. And there's a different bars that comes to bringing an organization on that learning journey. If you could measure how the current state of the organization before the transformation and what the current this future state, or what the state is now, you would have seen a big difference in the conversations of people and how the managers approach things and solve problems. So there's so much to be measured when you go on a transformation and unlock the training and leadership potentials of staff members. You can see the benefits and you can see the new thinking that grows in the business.
That's a very good answer, because there was also a question around how to make sure it's just not a one-off initiative and we can build that into the strategy. So I think that answers the question. So Shirley, I'm aware we don't have a lot of time. You did mention a few resources that you think are helpful, a couple of books. Are there any other resources that people could use to enhance their skills?
I'll try and answer Abby's question as well. She's saying, what advice would you give to aspiring leaders?
Okay,
I would say to any aspiring leader, find something to lead. You know, you can lead things that are quite small to other people. You might get a chance of a coaching conversation with them. So look for opportunities to lead and practice your skills. Obviously, I've got to mention Toastmasters. They kind of cover leadership, but it can be quite a while before you get to that opportunity. So the biggest thing is to practice. So I'm hoping I could organise a one-day coach training for an introduction for people that have not done anything. But I'm always assuming that IT people have been introduced to coaching. It's whether they've been introduced to it properly and whether they're practicing it properly is perhaps more interesting. Certainly, we need to mention the WhatsApp group for those that are interested in coaching skills. It'd be great to share practice there. We have done coaching skills practice sessions, but I found they're not that successful because people won't commit to 90 minutes of practice. And if you're going to practice coaching, you really need to do it in a peer group so that you're observing and participating. And, you know, everyone needs a turn. It's quite hard to do it otherwise. But I could see us maybe being able to do a kind of responsible conversation practice, which is about getting into the coaching conversation, which might be a start. That could be done in a shorter time. So I'm open to suggestions, but yeah, I will try and write this article with and include all the references I've mentioned. So that might be helpful to people. But really, my bottom line recommendation is to lead. You have to practice leading. You have to get into it. Just like if you want to be a good presenter, you have to present. Find a place that you can give a speech. Safe space, ideally. So yeah, the WhatsApp group is probably one of the safest places because everyone's in the same boat, wants to learn coaching skills. So that could be a very safe space. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. William, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I'll say on the journey, there are a lot of coaching programs. Dr. Shelley does a fantastic one, and I do recommend the one-day session. And secondly, as you said, lead by example. Find a team, find an informal volunteering opportunity so that you can continuously build on that leadership skill. A book that I recently saw that was used by Microsoft's CEO on their journey to transformation was Mindset by Carol Dweck. And I think that's a very good book as well that anyone could pick up and understand the growth mindset. It's helped me look deeper into the growth mindset. So Carol Dweck's book on mindset is a very good book for people to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Sounds like leadership is not a destination, but a continuous journey. So we have a lot to learn. And yeah, we encourage everyone to connect on LinkedIn, join the WhatsApp groups to continue this conversation. I'm aware that it has been an hour and I don't know if we have any more time for questions, but I've had a look at them and I think we've answered the majority of them. So I'd like to thank both speakers and also, yeah, thank you everyone who's attended today. We will be sharing the next upcoming events within the team as well, within the groups. So yeah, thank you once again for being part of this webinar and we look forward to the next one. Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much, Angela.